Good day, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to share the South African experience in constructing and managing a national qualifications framework management information system. We look forward to this engagement with you. In terms of what we will be talking to, we want to premise it within the work that the South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA, does as the custodian of the South African National Qualifications Framework. We will then look at key aspects of the South African National Qualifications Framework Management Information System, and then we will look at highlights, challenges, and lessons learned. So just to give you a broad overview, our presentation is premised on the view that an NQF management information system must be guided and informed by the information needs of a country's national education and training system. And in South Africa, that is with our South African National Qualifications Framework. So I'm going to do a very high-level overview of the regulatory and system arrangements in which our national NQF management information system is located. Just to let you know that what we first called the National Learners Records Database was established over 20 years ago in 1999. SAQA celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. We're very proud of that. It's been a tough year, but we're still standing. And after it established the National Qualifications Framework in about 1998, implemented 1999, it had a simultaneous parallel National Learners Records Database, which has evolved over the years. So what is SAQA? SAQA is an authority, a statutory body, which was established in 1995 as one of the first transformative acts of the new democratic government, and it continues under the National Qualifications Framework Act of 2008. So the act mandates SAQA to develop and implement, advance the objectives, and coordinates 3 sub-frameworks of a national qualifications framework for our country. We're involved in a number of things. You will see the registration of qualifications, the management of a management information system. It started as a learner records achievement database. Collaboration is a big part, as the first speaker said. It is very important to make sure you bring people along in transforming and changing the system and introducing new constructs and systems. We do foreign qualification evaluation and recognition. We recognize professional bodies and register their professional designations, which are licensed to practice in our management information system. We record that. We verify national qualifications in the promotion of genuine qualifications, and we conduct research. Our NQF is a single integrated system. It's an aspirational model for the classification, coordination, registration, publication, and articulation of quality assured national qualifications. And it has to be approved by our minister, who currently is known as the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. It used to be the Minister of Higher Education and Training. That's the HET there. Next slide. So just very quickly to say that the NQF is a social construct. And as was said by the previous speaker, it must be premised on active participation and social dialogue, as Mr. Pereira said. It is in service to its people. It requires ongoing intellectual scrutiny, adequate resources, all of which is guided by a strong transformational agenda. It's a comprehensive system. It has a register of qualifications, which is the technical aspects of the NQF. And very importantly, it's a framework for communication, collaboration, and coordination in the service of the education and training system and the people who live in the country that it serves. So the mandate of the NQF in terms of its management information system and data management, what the Act says is that SAQA, with respect to records of education and training, and must maintain a national learners records database management information system that comprises registers of national qualifications and part qualifications, learner achievements, detail of accredited providers offering the registered qualifications, recognized professional bodies, registered professional designations, other information, for example, a register of foreign qualifications compared and pegged against national qualifications registered on our South African NQF. And more recently, there was an amendment to our Act, which is yet to be actioned because it needs to be proclaimed by our president. And understandably, his attention has been taken with the national pandemic and other pressing matters in our country. But this requires us to establish and maintain a register of misrepresented qualifications, which is gathered by the evidence that we gather as South Africa in our functions, and to establish a register of fraudulent qualifications or part qualifications. I will now hand, I'm getting a bit confused, excuse me. In order to do our work, we need to work with our infrastructure partners, and we have 3 quality councils who are the quality assurers, which is the Council for Higher Education, the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, and the Council for General and Further Education and Training. Next thing. You can move to the next slide. Okay, we have a 10-level NQF, but with regards to information matters, the 3 quality councils are responsible for maintaining a database of learner achievements and related matters, and to submit that data to SAQA for recording on our management information system. Until now, SAQA has been performing this function for 2 of the 3 quality councils, but since this year, we have handed over the data inputting and the data loading function, and we're moving into a more strategic data analytics function, which my colleague Tola will tell you more about as she comes in to do the presentation. SAQA's role is to maintain the database and to submit such data these QCs must then submit this data to meet our requirements in terms of data loading and what needs to be captured. Next slide. So I'll hand over now to Omotola Akindolani. She's a senior researcher at SAQA, and she'll take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie, and hello, everyone. In this section, I will touch on some of the aspects of the South African NQF management information systems, as well as highlights and challenges that we've experienced in the process of managing these systems. Right. The NQFMIS is a system that consists of various databases, and I'll just linger on this diagram on the top right-hand corner of my slide for a bit. In its current form, it is referred to as the National Learners Records Database, and it contains information on registered qualifications and part qualifications, professional bodies and professional designations, and other information provided for by the NQF Act of 2008. Some of the other databases that make up, or registers that make up the NQF MIS, and Julie has already touched on the registers of misrepresented and fraudulent qualifications. Some of them include the verifications database, and this is where the outcomes of SAQA's verification service are recorded. Another database that makes up the system is the Foreign Qualifications Database, which contains details of SAQA's Foreign Qualifications Evaluation Service and includes data or information on all learners that have come into South Africa to either seek work or further study. As Julie has mentioned, SAQA is mandated by law to keep, manage, and report on these databases and registers so that we as a country can monitor the progress we've made towards implementing the NQF. The NLRD itself was developed in 1999 and is widely considered the most comprehensive register of national achievements and the largest NQFIMS or MIS on the continent. Now, what are we able to do with this information on the database? I mean, Julie has spoken about the fact that there's a definite shift towards using that information more strategically. Currently, we provide analysis and reports that guide policy and decision-making at various levels of government. Some aspects of the database, especially around the qualifications, are available to the public, to members of the public on SAQA's website, and they can use this information for the verification of achievement or work or study purposes. SAQA reports on its work and all other NQF-related matters to the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation on an annual basis. And like Julie had mentioned, we also collaborate with other stakeholders to produce progress reports as part of our accountability requirements. On this slide, I've just tried to show how information moves or flows to the NLRD. The NLRD receives data from a couple of sources. The information on the registration of qualifications and part qualifications is received from SAQA's own registration and recognition unit. And they then, submit this information to be recorded on the NLRD. Then we have the 3 quality councils that Julie has briefly mentioned. They submit information on learners and achievements, providers, and all other associated information. They submit this information to the NLRD. Then information on professional bodies and their designations and designates are submitted by the professional bodies. I'd just like to make a distinction here to say the 3 quality councils, each in charge of the sub-frameworks, do submit information, but in addition, we've got the Department of Higher Education and Training that submits records on public higher education, while the Quality Council for Higher Education submits information on private institutions. That's just a little distinction here, but these are the sources for the NLRD. The data submission process is guided by strict data loading requirements, and timing of submissions is included in guidelines to ensure consistency. On this slide, I show a snapshot of the content of what we currently have. As of the 30th of June 2021, the NLRD has records of over 20 million people. And these 20 million people have contributed over 61 million records of learner achievements to the NLRD. There is the qualifications register, which contains over 11,000 registered qualifications. And these qualification register also includes details such as, what NQF sub-framework the qualification belongs to, the NQF level, the ID and the title, articulation options, recognition of prior learning options, and other fields, other related fields. In terms of professional bodies, there are 106 recognized professional bodies that have 395 designations and over 1 million designated members. There are also over 6,000 providers that are recorded on this database. Now, with this rich data and detailed information. SAQA is able to produce various reports and analysis at various levels that provide information. In terms of our in-house analysis, SAQA has provided or has produced 6 trends reports that look at, the information on the NLRD and, share them with the public. The trends reports, the first trends report was published in 2002, and we've just recently produced the 6th trends report. And this graph is one of the graphs that we replicate in the report. For the 6th trends report, we have looked at trends in achievement for a 10-year period from 2009 to 2008. And in the report itself, we can further disaggregate this information into NQF levels and the different qualification types, as well as different fields and area of specialization, because that information is available. Just by the side, reports are available. If you want them by request, we're happy to share those. Another type of analysis that we, or another type of output that the NLRD, that we can get from the NLRD, is an analysis that we've just recently been working on, and they're learning pathways. These kind of analyses provide a snapshot of the movement that learners take as they navigate our NQF through the levels or through the sub-frameworks. This particular slide shows the learning pathways that we have between 1995 and 2014, the top 30 learning pathways. And I think what's interesting is we just see the different movements and note how people move from either higher to lower or lower to higher or across sub-frameworks within the NQF. And the numbers within these are just the actual number of learners that are making these movements. So this is something that we are currently expanding on. I'd like to just briefly touch on the highlights, challenges, and then I'll hand back over to Julie for the lessons learned. But I would like to talk on the key highlights that we've been able to accomplish with the NLRD. As part of our highlights, we've been able to track progress made in implementing recognition of prior learning in South Africa. I mean, the data that we have in terms of professional bodies and providers has helped us understand our RPL value chain better. SAQA has, like I mentioned in the previous slide, also been able to conduct learning pathway analysis for 3 sectors in South Africa. Those sectors are the early childhood development, community development, and engineering sectors. An example of, one of the findings or some of the findings that we have is seen in this little image here. On the left-hand side, we've got the learning pathways as, the experts in that sector, and this is for early childhood development. This is the learning pathways as they have outlined. If learners were to navigate the NQF, it should look like this. However, when we look at the information on the NLRD, what we find is a different, kind of pattern coming through. We've shared some of these findings at various workshops and engaged with the key stakeholders and key players in these spaces, and we know that there are opportunities to take this forward. We've also conducted international benchmarking analysis for the South African development community, SADC, over the last 4 years by contributing to and generating a mobility report, which helps us understand the mobility of learners within the SADC region. What you see on the screen here is an example of one of the contents of such reports. In addition, the information on the NLRD, with what we have and with the experience that we have given lessons learned, and we've been able to pass on some of these lessons to other countries who we have helped in conceptualizing similar systems. A case in point is Namibia, who we recently supporting by helping them develop specification requirements for their NQFMIS. I think it's important to note here that, of course, while engaging with different countries we've supported, we take some lessons away ourselves, which we use to further enhance our own systems. What are some of our other highlights? Although this slide summarizes everything that I've spoken about, I'd like to just add one or two things. The information on the NLRD has also helped government entities with projects such as helping to determine the SAQA skills, the number of SAQA skills in the country. And we know that students and universities also have approached us to use that information for further research purposes. Some of the challenges that we've experienced, in developing our systems, I think the very first one is our historical data gaps. With the previous, with our history, I'd like to say, there were fragmented record keeping that existed prior to the existence of the NQF. So currently, we still have paper records that are stored, and records that are stored in other formats that are not digital that need to find their way to the MIS. Till date, SAQA has digitized about 1 million of these, but we are constantly looking for opportunities to continue with digitization initiatives to further enrich the NLRD. I mean, the more records that we have, then the more we are able to paint a complete picture of, the learner and what's going on with the NQF. Another challenge that we have is we've often encountered structural or occasional delays with data submissions, even though there are timelines for the information to be submitted to the NLRD. With these delays, we are sometimes unable to provide timely verification of qualification and to provide our services in time. To address this, SAQA is in the process of gazetting data regulations that will provide strict criteria for timely data submission. Finally, there are other registers that are currently not fully integrated into the MIS. To address this, we have introduced integration projects, and we're constantly looking for opportunities to further enrich and improve this MIS. One of our key priorities, like Julie has mentioned, is to make that shift from focusing on the NLRD brand and move towards establishing a more holistic NQFMIS. I think that's it from me. I'd like to hand over back to Julie to just take the last slide and round up this presentation. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Tola. I'm very mindful of the time, Eduarda. So very quickly, as I mentioned earlier, I think when I started this presentation, what we have learned is that an MIS system needs to take context into account. So we believe it must be guided and informed by the information needs of a specific context or country and the system to which it is linked and unified. In South Africa, we have a system of collaboration with our key NQF partners, and that includes 3 quality councils and the departments of basic education and higher education. So while instruments and approaches are what we have learned, they are transferable across countries, the policies and systems not necessarily so. And because they're, as was said by the first opening speaker, they are culturally and socially embedded. And so it requires a contextual understanding of what is needed. Management information systems are not static. They are constantly being improved and enhanced, and the digital revolution is taken into consideration. So we consider it a multi-year process informed by continuous improvements and enhancements. And we are definitely seeing that we need to shift from procedural data loading to more strategic use of the data to inform strategy and planning on our national imperatives for the country. Thank you very much.